Hello, my creative friends. Did you miss me? I would like to welcome you to another episode of what would be the Daily Prompt, except it's not daily anymore, so I probably should change the title and change the titles for upcoming episodes. I'll update you with how things are going this week, and maybe we'll do some new titles for next week and a new show title and all sorts of new stuff going on around here. But today what I want to talk about is 3 missing skills that will kill would-be potential screenwriters' otherwise nascent careers. One of the great challenges of screenwriting is that it requires creativity. It requires creativity in a way that often writers don't fully appreciate. Now, my perspective, as you probably already know, is the producer's perspective. It's that perspective of the person looking for material to produce, reviewing work that comes in, talking to writers as you go, and ultimately finding that the writers are not actually writing stuff that we can really use. Now, why is that? There's a couple skills that writers don't actually develop. And if you're not taking action every single day, which was the reason behind the daily prompt in the first place, if you're not taking action every single day, these 3 skills you are not going to be able to develop. The big challenge that we have is that these 3 skills are not skills I can just give you a number of exercises for and bang, you develop them. There's no certificate for these 3 skills. The first skill I want to talk about is originality. As a screenwriter, as a would-be screenwriter, you need to be able to demonstrate originality. So often I get questions like, how to create a great logline, or how do you hook a producer, or how do you get in touch with the producer, whatever. The key is originality. The key is to create something that we haven't seen before. The key is to create something that we haven't heard of before. Something that when we hear the pitch, when we read the synopsis, when we read the screenplay, we go, wow, this is extraordinary. And I have never seen this before. If it's a great, well-written script, but it's pretty much just a knockoff of this, that, and that project, or if it's just, hey, wasn't this movie made in the 80s? We're just rehashing old stuff. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there who go, Hollywood just remakes the same old stuff, and it is true for a number of commercial reasons. A lot of old properties get remade. They have built-in audiences. There's a nostalgia factor, all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to writing and being able to demonstrate your skills as a potential screenwriter, you need to be able to demonstrate originality. If you get into a pitch meeting, if you get into a situation where you're potentially going to be discussing a new potential project with a producer, you're going to be able to need to demonstrate originality. You're going to, when they ask, well, what do you think about this for an idea? What do you think about this for a character? Or what's your take on this topic or theme? You need to be able to demonstrate that the ideas that you have come from your own mind in your own way, in a way that's unique and decipherable from everyone else. So how do you develop that? Well, here's the big challenge. Here's the big problem. We can't simply just develop that. It's a process that happens over time. You may write something that's purely formulaic, that's purely uninteresting, that's purely unoriginal. By doing that, you start to discover what works, what doesn't, how to find those elements that are going to make you more original. You have to tap into who you are. You have to tap into your uniqueness and your past experience and the things that only you can bring to the equation. There's a reason the old adage is write what you know. Because when you write what you know, you write something that's more authentically you. You bring something to the table no one else can bring. That originality is not an optional extra. That is a skill you need to develop. And it's a skill you only develop over time. It's not something you're going to develop next month or over the course of the coming year. It's something you're going to develop through writing 5, 10, 15 screenplays. And that's why you need to take action every single day. Now, the second skill that I wanted to talk about is speed. Now, my system is obviously called Fast Screenplay. A lot of people assume that means that it's about writing a screenplay in a month, and it kind of is, but it's really not. Fast Screenplay is ultimately about how fast your screenplay reads. A fast screenplay is a page-turner screenplay, something they pick it up, and they get so enthralled by it that they tear through it. But writing that page-turner screenplay actually does need to be able to be done relatively quickly. See, here's the reality. Let's say that you write something and some producer somewhere says, I love it, let's turn it into a film, and they go out and they start to shoot something, and the actor breaks their leg, and so they need to now recast someone or change something structural within the story. But that train is already moving. The budget's already being spent. There's no way now to cancel it. We have to shift midstream. Are you able to create professional caliber screenwriting on the fly, on demand? Are you able to be creative on demand? Is that something that you are capable of doing? Now, most writers are not, at least not initially, at least not until they develop the skills along the way. Here's another reason why you need to take action every single day. Here's another reason why you should not get depressed or disappointed or disheartened if the thing that you're working on right now today isn't quite working. Keep moving forward. Keep taking action. Work through the challenge. Work through the problem. Figure out how to get where you're trying to go, despite the fact that all the problems are coming along with you along the way. Because as you do that, as you learn to overcome the challenges and the hurdles, and as you learn to take your ideas and turn them into stories, and then turn them into stories more quickly and more fluidly and more efficiently and more intuitively, then what happens is you develop the ability to be creative with speed. Now, that may not seem like a big deal when you're not in production, you're not really working with producers, you're not in that environment where speed is relevant. And ultimately, it's not about rushing anything. It's not about just taking ideas and getting them on the page as quickly as possible. Those pages, what you create, the material that you write, has to be viable. It has to be production ready. It has to be something that they can say, bang, this is exactly what we need. This solves our problem. Now we can go out and get it done. So in that level, fast screenplay is about writing screenplays fast, but not about spitting things out, not about rushing things. It's about actually developing the ability to create intuitively, fluidly, creatively, fast, in a way that producers can actually use, in a way that is production ready, that is actually viable, because that speed is going to be the sort of differentiating factor between one writer that might be able to be hired. Well, we really like this writer's work, but man, they take a long time to get where they need to go. This other writer, we really love their work, and man, they can pump that stuff out that quickly. Well, which one are they going to go with? They're going to have to go with the one that can do it quickly, that creativity on demand. Now, here's the thing. Writing as a job, writing as a career, if you want to be a creative writer, a screenwriter, ultimately it's about being able to harness all that stuff when it's needed. Now, there are long gaps between the projects, right? There are long gaps between nobody's doing anything and trying to sell our projects, and then it's go time, and then there's no time at all. And then we develop it. Once we get into production, once we get close to production, particularly on the lower budget levels, I mean, keep in mind, if you're writing for a lower budget level, this is going to be even more important, ironically, because big changes may come up. If you have a very low budget movie, it's very possible that you spend a third of your budget, and then something major happens that causes us to do a big shift at some point along the way. The writer has to be there. It doesn't have to be there, but if the writer is there, if the writer is ready, if the writer is capable of pulling out that creativity, that originality, and doing it at speed, that person becomes an asset to the production, an asset to the project like no other. That writer becomes extremely valuable. And this is where you find that there are writers within the industry, within the community, that are revered, that are highly appreciated and valued within the industry because they're able to do that creativity and that originality quickly. Now, the third missing skill is one that I talk about a lot and one that I sort of discovered along the way. And so I find it to be something that that really is necessary in every way, but is something that is very difficult for people to wrap their brains around. I've talked about it before, even in the Daily Prompt series, but I want to talk about it again just to sort of reiterate some of these ideas. That skill is what I call alignment. The skill of alignment is not about taking... The skill of alignment is not about writing what the producer wants. It's not about subjugating your creativity and your originality, your ideas for the sake of them. It's not about aligning to their needs. Alignment is really two sides coming together in alignment, right? So alignment is about both sides getting what they need because they're synergistically in sync with one another. You as the creative writer, you have ideas, you have passions, you have themes you want to say and express and just that sort of artistic sense that you want to communicate. The producer has very specific needs about... Firstly, that as well, by the way. Producers tend to be artistic people. They tend to be creative people. If it's just about money and it's just about economics, there are far easier ways to make a living than producing movies. So a producer is generally an artistic person in the first place, but they do have a commercial imperative. They are beholden to the money that's come in. It is their responsibility to find the money in the first place and make sure that money is well spent, is spent appropriately, is spent in a way that best serves the project's goals. Now, those objectives and making sure that we're on budget, making sure that we're still targeting a market that we think can bring us back a return and all the business dynamics of it, those are real concerns. Those are real needs. Now, the needs of the producer have to be aligned with the needs of the writer, the creative needs. Now, that's a back and forth dialogue, right? That's really... It's not just about whatever the creative imagination of the writer or the director or the actors are, it's can we achieve that, or what's the best version of that we can achieve within the constraints of our current situation, our budget, our resources, our time limits, all that kind of stuff, right? If money was no object and time was no object, sure, dream away, whatever it is that you want to do. But most of the time, there are constraints on that, usually determined by what's the potential audience for this thing. So the producer's thinking about those things. So when a story choice or a creative choice or something that you've written comes in, and we're trying to filter it through that process and go, yeah, but I think this is possibly going to be, it works against the market that we're trying to write for, or the budget. I don't know how we're going to do this effectively on the budget limitation that we have. So the writer needs to have the skill of being able to understand what those needs are for the producer and not tailor what they've created to that, but to be creative in a way that is in sync with that. It's not about collapsing who you are for this superior person. And similarly, this person can't just collapse who they are for the superiority of your art. This is a collaborative medium. This is something where we have to come together, where you're creating something that is aligned with the needs this person has. So if a writer can develop that skill, that ability, not just to write, not just to be creative, not just to be able to do it at speed, but to actually be able to do it in a way that is in sync with the immediate needs of the producer. And by the way, the shifting needs of the producer, because it's entirely possible that when we set out on this project, the start of the project was, it's going to be this big thing. And then guess what? A money source fell through. And so now we can continue forward, but only if we chop the budget in half. Well, that means all these great things that were written can't be done on this budget, or if they do, they'd look cheap. So we need to find a more effective way to do it within that budget context. Suddenly, we need the creativity of the writer to align with the needs of the producer. And again, if you have that originality, if you have that speed, if you have that creative confidence to be able to generate the stuff because you have the skill, you have the ability from years and years of developing your craft, if you have that, then suddenly you're going to come up with things that are intuitive to you, things that are original to you, things you're passionate about, things that are in sync with your overarching story goals and aims and themes and the character nuances and all that stuff. You're going to create that stuff in a way that's in sync with the producer's needs. Now, particularly when you get into production and things happen in production, sometimes things need to change in production. The perfect line of dialogue that you wrote that is symbolic on 10 different levels, that actress just cannot say that line, just cannot get it out. What do we do on the fly that's going to be as effective on so many stranded story levels that on the fly, in that moment, you're going to create that line of dialogue that she will be able to say beautifully and that conveys everything as close as possible to the original goal, or that changes it in a way that still maybe makes the project even better. That's the kind of thing that we're talking about. Now, all of these things, there's originality, there is speed, there is alignment. These three missing skills are not skills that someone can just create a short course of 10 days and say, here, do this 10-day short course and you'll have these three skills. These are three skills that take time. These are three skills that take years to develop. These are three skills that require that you write multiple screenplays with a focus on these skills so that you learn and understand and targetedly, if that's a word, attempt to develop these skills. So when I talk about fast screenplay, when I talk about the system that I built, it's not just story structure or characters or dialogue. All that stuff's there, of course it has to be. But at the end of the day, the skills that you can't get unless you go through probably 5 to 10 years of trial and error, those skills are things like originality, which, by the way, you're not going to get originality if you're following some formulaic story structure every time. You're going to need to be able to find your own unique voice. How do you do that? Well, that's why I've guided you through that process. That whole idea of speed. How are we going to do all this stuff at speed? Well, I guide you through the process, and at the end of each thing, I snap it all together to make the thing fluid, so that at the end of the system, the larger goal for the end of the system is at the end of the system, once it all snaps together, this stuff becomes intuitive. You start to intentionally, deliberately focus on doing this at speed so that the skills become more ingrained within you, so that you become able to develop your abilities more fluidly, more efficiently, right? And then that idea of alignment is doing it in a way where you're forever paying attention to how it's going to be synergistically aligned with the target that you're reaching out to. Now, that may be a low budget producer, that may be a big studio, that may be an artsy, experimental avant-garde filmmaker that's completely outside the box. In order to create something with that person, you're going to need to align to that person. It's not about selling out. It's not about budget things. It's not about, those are all parts of it. But the skill set, the ability to do these things comes through time. And this is the thing that I try to condense in the fast screenplay process, is to guide you through that process, to give you these skills in addition to all the hundreds of other skills of characters and structure and dialogue and all that kind of stuff. So the reason that I point that out to you is simply because if you're not going to join me, that's totally okay, as I always say, and as I firmly believe. However, it's going to take, and you have to prepare yourself for it to take 5 to 10, maybe more years of trial and error to learn how to truly understand and master these skills. Because you can't do it on your first project. Not possible. Simply not possible. So you have to do your first project, you have to do your second project, you have to do your third project, and you really have to start to understand the feedback that you're getting from the projects you create and how that feedback changes from project to project, and what are the differences that all the different people that give you feedback, what are they seeing in it, how are you going to adapt and use and morph that into this process itself to develop these skills. Here's the big problem, and really probably the biggest challenge of all this. The biggest problem is that I believe these three skills are necessary for at least a long-term professional career. I believe that the way you are going to attract producers and actors and directors and people who are going to want to make the movies that you write is that you're going to need to be able to develop these skills, and it doesn't happen overnight. It's something that you're going to have to continuously work on. And it's not even something that if you do fast screenplay that you magically suddenly have. It's just the system is designed to empower you with those skills, and that's why I stand behind it as much as I do. So bottom line is this. If you don't have these skills, it makes it all the harder to get work in an ongoing way. Now, if you haven't sold your first script, you're not even anywhere near selling your first script, this may seem a long way down the road. I've got to get interest on my first project. I got to sell my first project first, right? But at the end of the day, you have to understand, if you understand these three skills and you understand that this is ultimately the part of, not the whole thing, by the way, this is just one part of the skill set that writers must have for an ongoing professional career. If you understand that, that is going to help you think about how you create what you create in the early days of your process. So think about those three things today. When it comes time, when we sort of turn this around and turn it into a prompt for you, I'm not sure that we're going to keep doing that if we change the nature and shape of this show. But for now, since we started with the intro of the daily prompt, let's turn this into a prompt for you. So what I want you to think about is those three things. Originality, the project that you're working on right now. Yes, I know you love it. Yes, it came from your brain, but what would you say it is on the originality scale for all the movies that you've ever seen? Is it something that you could actually say? So if someone's reading it, if someone's looking at your work, will they see it as genuinely original? If not, what might be able to be adjusted for that? How can you infuse the idea of originality into your project? Secondly, speed. How long does it take you to develop the stuff? Not to rush the stuff. Please hear me on this. If you spit out a 100-page screenplay in a week and you send it off and that work is A, not viable, but B, terrible, then you're working against everything we've been talking about here because it's not going to be aligned, it's not going to be usable, it's probably not going to be original, okay? So it's about how long does it take you to actually develop something viable, to develop something at a pro level. I want you to think about the work that you're working on now. Think about how long it's taken you to this point. If it's taken you more than, if wherever you are, if you're not at a first draft yet, and it has taken you more than about 4 months to get to this from the first time you scribbled something down for your idea, you should be joining us in this system. You should be joining us in this system if you want to learn how to just get it out of your head and onto the page in 1 month, right? Or then shrink that once you have the tool. So at the end of the day, how long is it going to take you to develop something legitimately viable? And then finally, alignment. Are you thinking about producers, production companies, and how what you're doing is in sync with their immediate needs? If you're not in contact with a producer yet, if you're not in that point where you're marketing your projects yet, think generically. The project that I'm making, is it consistent from a budgetary standpoint with what its ultimate audience size would likely be based upon the kind of film that it is? Those are the things to start thinking about. Those are the things to think about in relation to your project. I want to thank you very much for watching. These are obviously going to be more sporadic. I'll change the intro shortly here as soon as I get a chance to reflect that. But I thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to subscribe and click the bell icon, more important now than ever, so that you will get notified when new episodes come along. The next episode that I'm going to give you is going to be an update. So I'm going to blend the update for the Indie Film Studio project and for my, I'll probably wind up the personal vlog entries all in the same video, the next one, and hopefully we'll do that for Saturday. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Oh, by the way, follow us on Instagram, follow me on Twitter, follow us on Facebook, and send us emails or direct messages or whatever at any point along the way. And if you haven't already done it, sign up for the Fast Screenplay 10-day free start. It's absolutely free. It's for a limited time. I am going to be getting rid of the Fast Screenplay 10-day free start soon for a variety of reasons, which I will explain in an upcoming video. But if you haven't done it, do it. Get the value of it. It's free for a limited time. So thanks for watching. If you're watching in the future and it doesn't exist anymore, I'm sorry, but we probably have something even better for you at that point. So thanks for watching. Appreciate it very much. Go out, do something, take action. A little bit each day. That's how you develop towards these particular 3 missing skills. So thanks for watching. See you next time.